Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this week's video. In this week's video, what we're going to do is we're going to look at having an FPS game with a body to look down to. So I've gone through a couple of attempts at this, just trying different methods. Then after trying this myself, I went then and looked around and see how other people may have done it, and I've come to a final decision of which way I think would be the best way to do it. I got to give credit to Ryan Laley because I did take a few of the features that he displays in one of his videos. So credit where credit's due. Thanks, Ryan. I probably wouldn't have been able to do this video without it. So what we've got is this is the FPS template with a few extra bits and pieces added. So then legs. The shadow casts as if there's a full body, but there actually isn't, but we'll get to that in the video. Some of my first attempts were actually editing the UE4 mesh, so then the head and the arms weren't there, which gave an alright effect, but it caused some collision issues when jumping and doing some unique movements. This way is a little bit more labour intensive. This is the second version. It's a little bit more labour intensive as there's a bit more things to do, and no doubt if you've got lots of animations and stuff like that, there's probably going to be a lot more involved, which may or may not make it worth it, but I'll leave that up to you. So yeah, this is what we've got. You've got an FPS template with a set of legs. So let's get into how it's done. Okay, so I'm just going to create an FPS project here. It's a brand new project. I'm just going to call mine FPS Legs. You won't need starter kit or anything like that, but if you want the starter content, you can do. While that's creating, let's head over to the marketplace. While you're in the marketplace, or your library, if you've already used this pack before, you want to find the animation starter pack. If you've already had it before, it'll be in your library. If you've not, if you search the marketplace for animation starter pack, you can grab that. It's absolutely free. And now that project is created, let's just add this project. Sorry, add it to our project. I'm going to look for FPS Legs, which is there. There we go. Add to project. Once that's done, you're pretty much set up for everything that you need, and then we can jump. Okay, so now we're in the project. What I like to do is, if you just click on the FPS sort of template character that they've put in the level, and click on Edit in your World Outliner, this will bring it into the blueprint, and this is where we need to make changes. This is open here, and I'll drag that over. I'm now going to go back, and I'm just going to hit Delete on this character in the world, just because the changes that we're going to make to it don't update on that character. And when we press play, we want to spawn from the player start anyways. So back into the first person character blueprint. A few changes I like to make to my template just up front. Now I know I'm not going to use the motion controllers or a VR headset, so I'm going to select all of these on the left. I press delete. Now this is, if you press compile now, it will cause some errors, and that's because there is a bit of code up here which makes changes based on whether there's a head-mounted display. You don't need any of that, or the actual VR orientation reset for that matter, so you can select all of these at the top and hit delete. And also, if there's a head-mounted display enabled, is true, it's going to use this camera for the movement direction. So in that sense, we can delete those and select, tag all them together. So same for the move right, select the first person camera, right vector, select, head mounted, delete, pin that in there. With that being done, you can now shrink all this down. This isn't necessary for this video, but it's something I like to do on FPS projects I know I'm not going to use VR. And then same again down here, if we're using a motion controller, we can delete all that. This is in the spawn projectile node, and then just plug this transform into it. So that orange line should be there instead of all this code, and if you hit compile now, you shouldn't have any errors. Just a quick test just to make sure everything works as expected. I'm just going to hit play. my project is stalling a little bit because I have got another. So yep, hitting fire, everything's working as normal, and we don't have any legs. So let's fix that. Okay, so to give us some legs at the moment, we're just a set of floating arms. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this mesh here. Now this mesh is default for every character except for the first person character. They add a camera, then the mesh, then the gun. So selecting the character mesh, we're just going to select a skeletal mesh. Now because you've added the the animation starter pack, you're going to have this SK mannequin. Which when you bring in is just going to be floating in the air like that. And also what you're going to get is underneath the animation, it should be set by default to blueprint, but under the class it'll say none. If you want to scroll all the way down and you'll find UE4 ASP hero, select that and you'll notice that he gets sort of like a hip fire stance. Now we just need to correct the height and just get all this sorted. Now for the Z location, I typically set mine to -95. That's sort of like the right height I find works for all my projects. And for the rotation, it's -90. Now, you're going to have to work this bit out yourself. However, oops, that's not what I wanted. Typically, we need to push the character back on the Y, which is actually the X. Probably back like over here, like that. So we're moving the character back like this because this character is going to be used as the set of legs that we see with the FPS template. So as you run around, you're just going to see a set of legs. Now we need to we need to kind of like chop the character in half so we can get rid of the arms and the head and the torso, because otherwise we're going to have two sets of arms flying around as we've got as we're running around. Which if I press play now, you'll probably see that this is what the current state of things is. We only really need to see the legs because that's all that'll be visible. Now to do this, we're going to nip over to the construction script, and this is where I really have to thank Ryan Leary. We're about to use a node that I didn't know exists, so thanks to him. So what we're going to do is just grab the character mesh, drag this into your construction script, and dragging off this, there is a hide born by name. And if we tag this together, it's now asking for a bone name. At the moment it's set to none, but if we put spine with a capital S _01, and if we go to the viewport and I hit compile, you'll now see the character's been chopped in half. This is a brilliant node to use. Didn't know it existed, so again thanks to Ryan, that makes this possible. So now if we hit play, you can see we've just got a set of legs. Now obviously that doesn't look too great, there's just a big hole in our spine. So this is where we can move the legs back just a little bit at a time. Compile, hit play, and there now we've got just enough of the legs. You could probably push that back just a little bit more. Now the reason we have to do this is because when you're looking down, this camera is actually rotating like 90 degrees, so it's just seeing like just past the legs, which previously you'd saw the body and the arms of the full mesh. So let's hit compile, let's hit play, and here now we've got just enough of the legs be visible, and that's great. Now the only downside to this is, as we see, my shadow is now just a half body. There's no arms, there's no gun, you know, it doesn't really give off the right vibe. So this is where we need to add a few more meshes to it to sort of act as our body to other people, and also to cast a shadow for us. So what I'm going to do, just so you get a visual representation of what we're doing here, is if I drag an FPS character into the world, this is what another person is going to see. So at the moment, they're going to see a full body model and a gun just floating around. Now that's not what we want. So what we can do is, at the moment, this mesh is currently just for us to see our legs. So let's make sure that's set up in the code. So under the details of the legs, we scroll down to rendering, and we drop this down. So underneath the rendering settings, you've got owner no see and only owner see. We want to tick only owner see. Now what that does is it makes sure that only we can see it as the character that has the legs, and nobody else in the game can see it. So if I hit compile and play now, you will see that that has now changed to just a gun. Now again, that's another thing we're going to want to change. So underneath the gun, it should still remember that you're at the rendering settings, and we just want to tick only owner see again. Hit compile, hit play, and now you can see that my character is technically invisible. So let's sort out a character for everybody else to see. So underneath the mesh, which is just our legs for us, we want to add a component, and we want to add another skeletal mesh, and we want to call this one I'm going to call mine third person. And then scrolling back to the top on the details, at the moment the skeletal mesh is none. We want to select the SK mannequin again, and make sure that we're selecting the animation class UE4 ASP. And now you can see that that's kind of matched set of legs. It's fell in the same place because we've kind of parented it underneath this. Now, one other thing we want to just do is we don't want to see this model. We want everyone else to see it. So owner no see is what we want to tick this time. To hit compile, hit play, and as you can see now, our FPS guy is actually our third person guy. Now, one other thing you could probably do is, because we're not seeing it, you could move this model forward inside the collision model, just so then if we're running into a wall, it actually looks like we're running into a wall. The legs won't matter for this instance, I don't think, because of the way the collision will work, but we'll check that in just a minute. But yes, you can drag that forward now, so then to everybody else it looks like you're running into a wall and everything else. Just obviously in the viewport it will look a little messy. However, it'll look right to other people. Now, there's no gun in his hand, so let's fix that. Make sure you've got your third person selected, add a component, and select skeletal mesh, because the gun is a skeletal mesh. And we want to set weapon. Under weapon, what we want to do is scroll to the top. Details, underneath the skeletal mesh, we want to now select FP gun. And that'll bring the gun into the world there. Now, there isn't an animation class, so we don't need to worry about that. However, we want the gun to be in the character's hand. Now, what we can do is we can parent it to the socket hand. So, underneath the parent socket of the weapon, go to the magnifying glass and scroll down until you find hand R. And what this will do is it's parenting it now to the hand bone. So, as the third-person character model wiggles around in his idle state, the gun will take on that location with it. So it'll move naturally. Obviously, it doesn't look great all the way out to the side there. So I'm just going to reset to default the location, which puts it a lot closer to the model. I'm going to give it a rotation of 90, which will point it forward. And then typically what I find the best for it to look natural is if we set the X to -9 and we set the Y location to 5. Now that's quite close. You can play around with these figures a little bit, but for just, quick numbers, they seem to work off the bat for me. Hit compile, let's hit play, and let's see what it looks like. Okay, so we've got a random gun floating around, which we need to set the visibility. But from a third-person perspective, the shadow looks great, the character looks great, but obviously there's no collision, so we'll fix that too. So, First, let's sort out that visibility issue. So you should still have the third person weapon selected. We want to go down to rendering, and we're going to want to set this to owner no see, which for us, if we press play now, we shouldn't see it, but everybody else should. Great. Brilliant. Now, one other thing for us to just quickly fix is we've still got a half body shadow, which we don't want. So, for us to fix this, we're going to need to click on that mesh one more time and add another component and add another set of skeletal meshes. And I'm going to call this one full body shadow. Okay, scroll back to the top as we did before. Select a skeletal mesh of SK mannequin. Select the animation class as UE4 ASP. This has set the animation for us. Great. Now for the shadow, again, I need to thank Ryan Laley for this. This is another feature that I wasn't aware of. If we scroll down to rendering, if we untick the rendering main pass, this will prevent the physical appearance of the mesh being visible. However, its shadow will remain. We hit compile and play. Okay, we need to set that main thing off. But you can see now we've got a full body shadow, which is good. However, there's no gun, so let's fix that. Also, let's set the only owner see true. This will prevent the other character having a double shadow, but we have a shadow. Under your full body shadow mesh, add a component, add another skeletal mesh, and call this one weapon shadow. Scroll back to the top, select your skeletal mesh as FP gun. Again, let's parent this to the hand R. Set the rotation to 90. Set the X to -9. Set the Y to 5. Hit compile. Okay, and to make sure that we only cast in a shadow, if you scroll down on the right hand side and to rendering, and you want to untick rendering main pass, and this will only cast a shadow. Hit compile, play, and now we shouldn't see a gun, but you should see a full character model holding a gun. And then for everybody else, they will see a third person character holding a weapon. So now this video is only intended for getting this set up. Obviously I did mention there is probably a lot of work involved here, where you're going to have your bullet visibility come in. I mean, to be fair, your bullet visibility might not be that far off. I was thinking where the bullet's going to be coming out of this barrel here, because essentially this this sphere is where your bullet will come from. It might not be that far off. It may work. You just probably need to do some minor tweaks here and there. It's where it comes to the animation may get a bit complicated. You've got 3 sets of skeletons, but I might build on top of this, and if it comes to it, I might do some more videos. If you do want me to build on top of this any further, other than what we've done today, please comment down below. If you do this method and you run into issues, please let me know, and I'll have a look at getting them fixed. Love to know your feedback. That'd be great. Again, I'll post a link to Ryan Laley's channel down below, so you can go and see some of his stuff. This video wouldn't have been completely possible without him. Ultimately, it did lead me to the best method for this. If this method won't work for your type of video, please let me know, and I'll revert back to the previous style that I went towards, which was putting a camera in front of the a body. That also causes some issues, but it might be easier to overcome for you. If it did help, please consider subscribing, so then you see more content like this. And that's it from me. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Thank you.
Eyes on my display, you say we need a change, and I feel that you mean it. You mean